This review will take a look at the case of Amy Bradley. She went on a cruise with her family and was 23 years old and just disappeared from the ship when she left her cabin around just before 5 in the morning. And it's quite a missing persons case, and it's, let me get this on the screen here. One moment, please.
American girl vanishes from a Caribbean cruise liner.
Somebody saw her, somebody wanted her, and somebody took her.
Her parents' search for answers leads them into unimaginable territory.
It was just horrible.
It wasn't the Amy that I know.
And a trail of witnesses uncover the unthinkable.
That's the girl I saw in Barbados.
I'm 100% sure right now as I'm speaking that she's alive. Somebody knows what happened. One way or the other, somebody knows.
Beth Holloway ventures to Curacao to track the mysterious disappearance of Amy Bradley. Now, on Vanished.
2005, I got the...
And let me just advance this a bit, and here's where it kind of begins.
Home to the Bradley family. Ron, Iva, Brad, and Amy.
Amy was born first and ran the show. Amy lettered in 5 sports in high school. Brad did the same thing.
Was Amy a take charge sister?
Focused and a fireball and...
A lot like her mom.
Amy receives multiple college scholarship offers, but chooses the school closest to home. Amy and her brother Brad are especially close.
Brother, I'll always be there for you. I love you, little brother.
Hey!
By 1998, 23-year-old Amy has built a life of her own. She has a new apartment and is making plans to pursue a master's degree in sports psychology.
She seemed to be as happy as she could, and was very excited about everything at home and how things were going with her life at that point.
In early March, Amy's parents call with more exciting news. Her father's employer is sending the family on a 7-day Caribbean cruise. Surprisingly, Amy is reluctant to join them.
She was a little apprehensive.
And I'll advance this a bit. It's hard to get everything in here, but let me get this. Here's more information.
AM. As the ship arrives in Curacao, Ron Bradley wakes to find his daughter still on the balcony, relaxing.
Knowing that she was comfortable, I just decided to lay my head back down because I knew in about 20 minutes we were going to get up and go off on the island and have breakfast.
But when Ron wakes up again 20 minutes later, Amy is nowhere in sight.
Right away I said, well, she must have gone up on the deck to take some pictures, drink some coffee. So I fully anticipated going out of the room and finding her up on deck.
But Amy is not on deck. All of her belongings are still in the room. Yet after searching the ship for more than an hour, Amy is nowhere to be found. Ron is starting to panic.
You know, where in the world is she? And I came back and told my wife that I can't find.
And let me advance this a bit. It gets quite chaotic here because they don't know what happened to her.
And into a foreign country.
How did you get off that ship? How did you do it?
The hardest thing I'd ever done. You just are kind of stunned and you leave.
In less than 4 hours, the ship will set sail for its next destination, with or without the Bradleys. The search for Amy is a race against the clock.
We're in a foreign country. We don't know what to do. We're trying to get in touch with authorities. We're trying to get in touch with the embassy. That was closed. It was complete chaos.
Amy's parents reach out to the FBI, but it will be at least 24 hours before agents can get to the island. As the ship prepares for departure, the Bradleys make the gut-wrenching decision to stay behind and continue searching for Amy.
And the ship docked at the island, and they assumed somehow she was off the boat, and so they searched the island there. And let me get this advance a bit.
The Bradleys race to St. Thomas, the ship's next stop, and confront the captain.
I looked at the captain eyeball to eyeball, and I told him, I said, you lied to us. You did not search this ship in its entirety. I said it would behoove you to let the FBI on here so we can find out who has Amy.
On March 26th, the FBI conducts an extensive search of the ship.
They did what they call a bomb search. and they had crew members walking around with Amy's picture folded up in their hand. You know, they were looking here and they were looking there.
Meanwhile, Amy's family continues their own search.
So now you have rejoined the ship. What are some tips and leads that are coming to you guys?
We were just walking down the hallway, and these two college-age girls, they came screaming up to us, just frantic. We saw Amy with a band member. We saw Amy, and we couldn't find you. Where have you been? And we said, well, we just got back on the ship. What are you talking about?
The girls claim that around 5:45 a.m., they saw Amy heading back to the ship's all-night dance club with the band's bass player, a Grenadian man by the name of Alistair Douglas.
They said they saw them come up the elevator, and then when the elevator door opened to the disco, she turned and they stepped into the disco.
So the very last person that Amy was known to be seen alive with is Alistair Douglas.
Yes, it's him.
Amy.
That's the best lead-in that they have. And here's
Amy's
some...
brother Brad also recalls seeing her dancing with Douglas earlier, the night of her disappearance. More importantly, Brad recalls a strange encounter he had with Douglas the next morning.
He comes up to me, and the first thing he said was, he said, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister."
Alistair Douglas's statement triggers alarm bells with the Bradleys, because at that time, the only people that knew Amy was missing were the captain and his security team.
And let me advance this a bit more. And
They saw her, somebody wanted her, and somebody took her.
Despite searching the ship and interviewing several crew members, the FBI doesn't have the necessary evidence to charge anyone with kidnapping. On March 28th, the Bradleys' dream vacation ends in despair. They disembark the ship one final time and catch a flight back home.
I know it had to have been the hardest point in this entire nightmare for you to leave that ship without your daughter.
And as you can see, they had to leave the ship and they can't find her. And then they flew to the other place and got the FBI to search the ship, and she wasn't found there. And here's a little more information.
With the help of local police, Ron and Brad scour the tiny island for any trace of Amy.
It was a crazy search. They were looking in huts and going in the water and crawling up on the back of boats.
We were just looking for her, looking for any clues, anything.
Then, 4 days into their search, Brad hears an eerily familiar voice.
I heard Amy call my name. Pretty distinctive growing up my whole life with the way that she would say my name and call me.
The voice seems to be coming from a passing van.
So we kind of whipped a U-turn and followed the car that we thought it came from back in all these neighborhoods and little side roads and things.
Eventually, Ron and Brad catch up to the van.
And we got up to him, and just some guy, by himself in the van. So either, we obviously followed the wrong
media for help.
It's just a constant thing from the time we got up in the morning until the time we went to bed at night. And it never stopped.
It's like a hole blown through you with a bunch of jagged edges. There is no closure until we find Amy.
May 1999. After watching a TV segment on Amy's case, a Canadian businessman by the name of David Carmichael calls the Bradleys with an astonishing lead. He also tells them he has no interest in their reward fund.
I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget it. He said, "I have seen your daughter. I've absolutely seen your daughter."
According to Carmichael, the encounter took place while he was scuba diving in Curacao, some 5 months after Amy vanished.
We were over in a small area where we wash off the equipment in fresh water, and I looked down the beach and I saw a girl walking down the beach with being flanked by 2 people.
At first, Carmichael paid no attention to the 3 strangers. But then, the woman did something bizarre.
The minute she heard I spoke English, she picked up her pace and was putting distance between her and the 2 people that were flanking her. Within what was probably seconds, she was within 3 or 4 feet of me.
According to Carmichael, just as the young woman was about to speak, the 2 men caught up to her and pulled her into a nearby cafe. David decides to follow them.
Something went off in my brain to tell me gather more information about this person.
And that was a sighting, alleged sighting of Amy. It was never proven to be her, though. And let's see, let me advance this a bit more.
3 months later, another man comes forward with additional information that seems to prove, without a doubt, that Amy has been kidnapped. The man's name is Frank Jones. Jones is a private investigator who claims that Amy is being held captive, and that her captors specialize in one of the Caribbean's darkest secrets, human trafficking.
And that lead proved to be fraudulent totally, and that person was a con man. And let me advance this a bit more.
Former Special Forces officer Frank Jones and his reconnaissance team are convinced Amy is being held against her will on the Caribbean island of Curacao. But first...
Yeah, that lead was totally false. Let me advance this a bit more.
To keep Amy's name, her face, the circumstances surrounding her disappearance in the forefront.
We can't let her down. And any parent will do whatever, as you well know, whatever you have to do to find your child.
4 more years pass without a single new lead in the case. But finally, in September 2005, the Bradleys receive a shocking tip. An anonymous source sends them photos he found online. The woman in the pictures bears a striking resemblance to Amy.
Could these possibly be Amy? Heavy makeup, kind of wild hair. My sister, the artist, first thing she does is she takes the picture. She said, squint your eyes at that picture and see what you see. And Beth, when I squinted, it was like, it just shocked me. It was just Amy.
Even more telling is the fact that the pictures were pulled from an adult website based in the Caribbean. And the young...
And that lead could never be followed up on. They could never trace that person or that location as to where they thought the adult website originated from. And let me advance this a bit. Here's another lead.
While using a department store ladies' room, Judy finds herself trapped in a frightening situation.
I went into the stall. As soon as I got into the stall and sat down, I heard somebody coming into the restroom and I heard men's voices. My automatic response was to hide because I was afraid they came in to rob me or, rape me or something. I didn't know what was going on.
Gripped with fear, Judy listens as one of the men makes a threatening statement to someone.
He must have said 5 or 6 times, the deal's at 11 o'clock. And you better be ready to go. He goes, and I'm warning you, you better cooperate. This is my deal, and you better not mess it up. And he just kept saying that.
You had to have been just trembling.
I was petrified. I was practically holding my breath because I'm thinking, I'm witnessing something that I shouldn't be witnessing.
Then, as quickly as they enter the restroom, the men leave. But Judy Maurer is still not alone. Cowering by the sink is a young woman who appears to be in her early 30s.
She looked like she's about ready to cry. So I tried to talk to her because I could see that she was just really distraught. So I said, well, where are you from? And she talked so softly that I could barely hear her, but at the time I thought she said Virginia.
What the woman told Judy next was unmistakable.
So then I says, well, what's your name? And then real softly, she says, Amy.
What did you do when she said her name was Amy?
Well, I said, oh, my daughter's name.
And that's another lead that could never just be followed up on. And let me get a final screen on here.
Years have now passed, and there are still more questions than answers surrounding Amy Bradley's disappearance. Although Amy could be anywhere by now, private investigator Tim Buckholz believes that there are still answers to be found in Curacao.
Got a question for you. I'm looking for somebody. Remember this girl? Remember her?
Somebody knows what happened. One way or the other, somebody knows.
Tim believes that somebody could still be Alistair Douglas, the bass player aboard the cruise ship and the last person seen with Amy before she vanished. Douglas is believed to still be working and living in the Caribbean, And though there is no concrete evidence linking him to any crime, Tim Buckholz would like to ask him one simple question.
What happened to Amy that morning while the ship was docking into Curacao? That's the only question I want answered.
Until then, Tim and the Bradley family will continue searching the Caribbean for clues, hoping that one day Amy will come home.
And that's the kind of a quick review of that unsolved missing persons case. And there's a lot of stuff on the internet about it, and it's been profiled on television numerous times. And it's quite interesting. If you just go to Google search engine and just Google Amy Bradley, there's quite a bit of stuff on it and stuff like that. But anyhow, hopefully I got everything in here for a quick review, and that should do it.